Should you buy a super handy 20-ton gas log splitter? In my opinion, no. I don't think anybody should buy one of these. And there's quite a few reasons why. So I have about 10 hours on this unit so far, which isn't a lot. And it's been good so far. It's really done a good job. But I find myself being constantly paranoid when I'm using it that something's gonna break. Now, if you've watched my past videos on this, I've mentioned before that the hydraulic cylinders on these are riddled with issues, being that for two reasons. One, the cylinder is not properly supported in this design. The only thing holding it upright is these 4 bolts, and this frame right here, the plate on the cylinder pushes against this frame when the cylinder is moving out. So there's not a lot of support for the cylinder there. And the other problem with the cylinder is that there's no guides along the frame of the splitter to keep the, I don't know if you'd call this a fence or what you call it really, but this pushing deal, it just free floats on its own. As you can see, there's nothing holding it in line with the frame. And so originally I was worried about it going side to side and bending on a bad piece of wood. But as a user pointed out, even the back of the cylinder is not supported. It could actually go up or down. So this cylinder can go any which direction it wants depending on the piece of wood that you're trying to split, and that is just terrible. I've never seen a design like this, and I think really super handy. And Landworks, I think it is, are the only ones that kind of run this weird setup. And I understand what Super Handy was trying to accomplish with this. They were looking for a decent tonnage gas splitter that could be delivered at a reasonable price to people. I get that. In order for that to happen, all these pieces have to be able to be consolidated into a box small enough to be shipped without having to be shipped freight or, cost a lot. And that's all fine and everything, but the design just isn't right. Another thing that I'm worried about with this, and originally I didn't even think about it, is the wedge. So this frame, the main frame here of this unit, doubles as a hydraulic reservoir for the hydraulic oil. And at first glance, I mean, the welds on here look pretty good. I don't know how thick this metal is, but when you're talking 40,000 pounds of force on a wedge, that's a lot of weight pushing on it. And it would be one thing if this wedge were welded to an I-beam, but this is a hollow, box made out of metal full of hydraulic oil, so I don't know how much support is even there. And I realized watching some of my videos splitting, if you watch them slow enough, you can actually see this wedge moving outward. And so there's an enormous amount of pressure being put back here, pushing down, and then at the front of the wedge, this is actually coming up because it's bending the wedge over at the top. I know that sounds weird, but it's flexing this entire reservoir / frame. And so I was so concerned in paying attention to the cylinder, I didn't even realize that essentially, if the cylinder doesn't fail first, you might push the wedge and break it right off the end of the frame. And I've already noticed, I don't know if you can see this on camera or not, try to get this as straight as I can. You see that? This? It's already bent. I think it bent when a really good piece of wood went through this, and I think it tweaked it a little bit. And I know it did because this lift handle used to be straight with the frame, and now it's not. It's loose anyways, the handle I mean, but it's bent over this way. So stuff is bending. So now as far as everything else other than the structural issues and the problem with the cylinder, I haven't had issues with anything else. This engine runs great. It is a Honda clone, and honestly, I don't think I've ever had a problem with one of these engines. This runs great. It started the first time I pulled it after putting oil and gas in it. I have no complaints. Starts up great, runs great. It's cheap. These engines, you can get carburetors for like $15, recoils for $15. You know, spark plugs and air cleaner, filters, just everything. It's cheap on these. So I'm not, the engine I won't even, it's perfect. I have no problems with it. The pump is small. I don't know a lot about hydraulic pumps. It is small, but so far it's worked well. I can't really speculate on that too much. If it fails, it fails, but for now I'm gonna say it seems to be pretty good. I don't know what quality these hoses are, because I don't know what to look for. I don't know what a good hose is and a bad hose is as far as hydraulics. Nice thing about these though is you don't have to tape or dope any of the fittings. They don't leak at all either. I haven't had any problems with them. I did tighten them myself when I was putting this together. I double checked them 5 times. Haven't had any leaks, so no complaints there. This valve, it gets a little bit sticky sometimes. When you're on your return, you're supposed to, you can let go of it, and then when the cylinder is fully retracted, it clicks forward on its own, but sometimes it gets stuck and it doesn't click forward. No idea why. The valve here, when I was tightening this down, you hold this right here with a wrench and then tighten this with a wrench. And it's really easy to turn this whole unit, even when you're holding this top part. I don't know why, and I don't think that's much of a concern, but just cheap parts sometimes, I think they're just, you can just kind of tell they're not the highest quality. This little pin design on here, there was a ring on this, and the wood kept catching the ring, and then it bent the ring and broke it, and then this little springy piece flew out 2 times, and I went around outside of my garage and found the pieces. So I put it back in there and threw this cheap little pin in there. So it is kind of nifty though. I mean, you can put it down, and then when you need to move it, just lift it up and it locks into place. So, but anyway, when I'm using this, I'm constantly paranoid about it breaking, and that brings me to another point, is the price thing. So I think Amazon made a mistake. In my previous videos on this, I mentioned that I paid $575 plus I think about $40 shipping. And I got a heck of a deal on it. Funny story, I paid with a credit card because I thought it was a scam. Because most of these are in the 700s or above. So I thought $575, there's got to be something wrong here. So I paid with a credit card, so then if it was a scam, you know, then I could report it as fraud, and then the credit card company would have to deal with it. I thought maybe I'd get like a little toy or something, or maybe they were selling units that they knew were defective for $575, but selling them as brand new. I don't know. And to my surprise, a brand new one showed up in a box. And it was surprisingly in good condition. And it works fine. Upon seeing that a lot of these are even going for over $1,000 now, I tried to look up the seller on Amazon that I got this from, because I was going to post the link on my YouTube. So then if anybody wanted to buy one for $575, they could. When I went to do that, the seller had taken down that post they had for this item, and they redid it, and now they're over $1,200 from that seller. So I don't know if they made a mistake having it on there for $575, and then after I paid for it and everything, maybe they just honored it and sent it to me. Because they had 16 or 17 units in stock when I bought this. I remember that because I was thinking, wow, if this is a good unit, $575, I should buy a bunch of these up. I remember thinking that when I bought this. And yeah, so now they changed it to over $1,200 new. So I got a good deal on it anyway. And for $575, I'll deal with whatever happens to this thing. I have welders, I have fabrication tools and access to metal and all kinds of stuff. Whatever breaks on this, I can make something new. If this reservoir broke, I have access. I know where I can get I-beams. I could take an I-beam the same width as this reservoir, make it have the I-beam longer than what this frame is now, and then mock this cylinder on there in a way that it would be more supported, you know. And then you have the lip of the I-beam on each side where you can have guides connected to this plate to help deter the cylinder from bending one way or the other. So I kind of bought this thing knowing I was getting a kind of a deal on it, and that if anything happened, I could fix it, or I could, you know, fabricate something new. But for everybody else who doesn't have welders, doesn't have the time or the care to do all that stuff, even at $575, I would tell you don't buy one of these. And now they're even more than that. So I honestly, there's no way, just as a common courtesy to everybody watching this video, unless you have a bunch of money burning a hole in your pocket and you don't care, don't buy one of these. Don't pay $700, don't pay $800. Don't pay $1,000, don't pay $1,200. So, and I'm sure there's people out there that have that magic luck that I don't have, and they could use it for 100 hours straight and never have one thing happen to it. Nothing, not a leak, no breakage, no bending, nothing. I don't have that type of luck. I never have. In the 10 hours I've used this, I have already seen things flex in a way that makes me nervous. So, to the common person out there, stay away from these. I like the idea that Super Handy has going here, like I said, with the, you know, being able to be shipped, having decent tonnage, 20 tons, and being gas. A lot of people in the market for these things, I think people are learning that gas is the way to go. There's just something about electric motors running the hydraulic pumps. I think you just always have that extra power when you're running gas. And with this unit, you know, they have an electric version of this and the gas version. And I just don't think this product is where it should be yet with its design for mass production and sales. I think this needs to go back to the drawing table, and they need to redo some things on it and then remarket it, and I think it would be a much better idea. When I see these for $1,200, I think about the County Line 25-ton log splitter that Tractor Supply Company sells. That's between $1,200 and $1,400 each, depending on where you're located in the U.S. In fact, right now, my store has the County Line 25-ton gas splitter on sale for $1,150. If you can get a unit like that for, you know, close to $1,200, I would pick that over this any day. There's no way I would pay $1,200 for this. And on Amazon, eBay, wherever, you know, I feel bad for everybody who is spending $1,200 of their hard-earned money on this unit because it's scary. You should be able to split wood all day long without worrying about your cylinder bending or the, you know, frame breaking or the wedge breaking right off the end of this. Too much stress for me. There's enough stress in this world. You shouldn't be worried about your log splitter failing because of a poor design. That's just my opinion on this unit. I will say, other than the design issues, this thing blows the Wen electric splitter out of the water. Honestly, I use this a little bit. I have a few videos on it, and it doesn't take much for this thing to come to a complete stop. It'll push a piece of wood into this wedge and then get the wedge stuck in the wood, and it won't go any farther. And there's nothing you can do to get it to go. It's just too much for it. And those pieces that this thing could not do, this thing splits apart in a nanosecond. I mean, it doesn't even phase it. So there's a huge difference here as far as power. And I honestly think that if this cylinder were better supported and you had guides for this plate and the frame was a little beefier and you didn't have worries about the wedge, I think this thing would be awesome. I mean, completely awesome. As far as other things other than the structural and design issues, for one, this thing's a little low to the ground. Kind of hurts your back. If you notice in my videos on this, I'm a bigger guy. My back isn't good. I'm fat. I'm overweight. And repeatedly bending down all the time makes your back pretty sore using this. And if you're using this hours on end, you know that. Now, if you have a splitter that's higher up in the air, I mean, kind of like this one, you still have to bend over and pick the wood up. So your back might still hurt. But with this, not only are you picking the wood up, but you're bending over, you know, again, because it's low, which isn't, I mean, the end of the world when it comes to splitters, but in my opinion, there's definitely some mods that could be done to this to make it a better unit. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And I don't want, you know, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I don't know if I want to wait until this thing fails catastrophically to change it, or if I should like fix it now so it doesn't happen. I don't know. I know if you do anything to this, it voids the warranty. I don't have a lot of experience dealing with warranty stuff, but if they like needed you to send pictures of this unit for them to send you replacement parts, and you have, you know, say some metal straps made around the cylinder, and then you have like a support going down and welded to that to support this going up and down, and then, you know, if you drill a hole through this and bolt on a homemade guide system, you know, if they see that, they might say, okay, well, we're not going to send you replacement parts. You altered the unit, even though you're making it better, you know. But I definitely think if you look at some more professional splitters, they all have, I've seen all different designs, but one I see a lot is they'll have like two pieces of metal welded on the back of the cylinder, and then, you know, a little piece of metal coming off of the I-beam, and it'll have a pin in it. And then it'll be supported, you know, somewhere on the cylinder. And then you know, they'll have the wedge welded onto the I-beam really well, like really well. And sometimes they'll have a flat base at the end of the I-beam, and then they'll actually have the wedge on the cylinder. That works too. There's just better designs out there for this, and you know, I paid for this thing. It's mine now. If anything catastrophic happens to it and warranty doesn't cover it, you know, I'll build something out of it. And I'm really hoping someday to kind of learn more about hydraulics, and so having something like this here to look at helps me to think in my head how you might design something in the future. You know, hydraulics aren't as complicated, I think, as they seem. You know, you have a reservoir and a tube from the reservoir to the pump. Then you have the pressure going up to a valve, and that's where you distribute where you want your hydraulic oil. You know, so if you're putting, this puts pressure in the back of the cylinder, pushing the ram out. And then when you retract it, then it pushes all that fluid back down into the reservoir. I mean, I don't know it to a T, but I mean, I get the idea. I don't know anything about this valve. I don't know how these valves work. I've never looked at the internals, but I just bought this thing really as an experiment. Anybody watching my videos, you know, somebody out there's got to take one for the team. And I got such a good deal on it that it was worth really testing this and seeing if it's a viable piece of equipment or not. In my opinion, I wouldn't get one. It's a free country. Everybody can buy what you want, you know. It's kind of like those cheap Chinese excavators you see going around right now. I know they're junk. I know a lot of them are terrible. Do I want one? Of course I do. I think it's just so cool, you know, even though it's probably full of problems. But so anyway, by your own discretion. So, but I'll keep using this thing, and you know, it's been good so far. Hopefully it stays that way, but if I have any issues, you know, you'll know about it. So, alrighty, well, let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.